Hello, friends, and welcome to the Top Lane Therapy Session. Today, Todd is going to share with us his feelings on the current top lane meta. Additionally, he will tell us why fighters are riding the struggle bus this season. Then we'll talk about why tanks are the worst thing ever, and gather around the fire to sing songs of the good old days when there weren't heroes like Ornn building pure defense and topping the damage charts. So let's all gather together. Let's all get real close together, get cozy with one another, and enjoy a podcast.
Welcome to the Trinity Force Podcast. Yo, it's that Triforce cast beaming straight to your home. Grab a beer so we know Pone ain't drinking alone. Send an email, a quick tweet, just pick up the phone. Leave a message at the beep if you're a creep, watch your tone. Discuss the meta game, patch notes, whatever helps your stats most. Obi-Pone Kenobi is your last hope to snatch gold. So grab your headphones and join in the fun. We'll try and force in some jokes and some cringeworthy puns. Yo, we can make it together, people. Trinity Force Podcast. These boys are second to none. Now that's the end of the intro. It's time we begun.
Hey guys, welcome to Trinity Force Podcast, episode 511. I'm joined tonight by Todd Marine Revenge.
Hello.
And Brad Punchinello.
That wasn't Hey Dogs. There's no dogs in that.
You're right.
Yeah, I know.
Who is
Hey
this
Dogs.
man?
I wasn't expecting the full name intro. You caught me off guard.
Yeah, it was a real last second thing I decided to do. And that's my bad for throwing you guys off.
You're supposed to make us feel comfortable as the host.
I
What
know.
are you doing,
and
man?
I was gonna roll with it, but then Punch called me out. He's like, "Yo, what was up with that hello?"
I didn't even catch it, and I've been the one who's been clamoring for somebody to say "Hey
I'm
dogs"
just
or later
trying to
dogs
hold
every
us to a
episode.
standard here, all right?
Punch is
Pe-
consistent.
People try to expect high quality content out of us. We have to deliver.
High quality dogs.
Exactly.
BuddhaBoxers.com/T-Force. No code, just boxers. They're good. They're cheap. They're for you if you go there and buy them. And as always, you can write to us at feedback@trinityforcepodcast.com. We're going to write back with either a response to your question, or we'll write it into our document and answer your question on air. Adam keeps teasing that the voicemail line is coming back, but he hasn't given me a phone number to advertise, so that's probably a whole bunch of lies. And that's it for kind of the business that we need to touch on. You both missed the Swain episode. Have either of you really run into him at all?
I have played against him a bunch, and he is
happy?
hard to deal with.
Yeah? So you've run into him more in top lane, because we were bagging on him in mid pretty hard.
Top lane, he seems pretty strong. I mean, the fact that he can pull you in. If you're a melee character without much pressure against range, that's pretty hard to deal with.
Yeah.
You just take a lot of damage, and it's difficult to get out without, it's hard to minimize the poke you take from Swain.
That grab has longer range than I thought, too. Even as a ranged character, it could be a struggle to dodge that ability.
I mean, and the big thing is that, or the big thing there too, I think a lot of people forget, is that it's any time you're immobilized, not just if Swain catches you. When you're in the laning situation, it's probably just going to be Swain, but once team fights break out, anytime you're immobilized, you're getting yanked backwards.
As far as how well he's doing in general, I've just had the hardest time getting a read on him because the people that are playing him have been all across the board in terms of how well they've done. There are games where he's dead last in terms of damage done, and then there's games like when Varel played him for the first time and his damage is off the charts. So
I feel like
I don't know what to think.
I'm sure his stats and everything look really bad right now, but I think we need to. I mean, we might even need to just give it a full patch, because it probably won't be until the very end that people start to figure him out, and then they're gonna change all the AP items anyway. But we're not really going to be talking Swain much longer tonight. We're going to be talking top lane. And with top lane in mind, we do have a weekly challenge for all of you. This one's courtesy of our producer, Lancifer. And it's use your brush to manage your minion aggro. So mid laners, I'm sorry, you don't really get to do a whole lot of that. Bot laners, top laners, lot more of this is applicable to you.
Yeah, get in the habit of just walking into the bush for a second or half a second whenever the minions start to attack you. It's just a good habit to get into.
Yeah, go in. Oh, go ahead.
I like to walk into the bush like right after a trade. You know, you deal your damage and you pull minion aggro from the trade, and then that's pretty much the best time to try and shake it off is right after that.
That's literally what I was going to say. So
We're on the same wavelength.
We are, and if the diamond player is giving you that advice, it's stuff that you should be listening to. Todd's the diamond player. I'm not the diamond player.
In case there was anyone wondering.
Just like I realized that was kind of open ended, and people might have been. I was not trying to misrepresent myself there.
You can let it be ambiguous, dude. Let people think you're diamond.
Maybe someday. If this season goes according to Adam's plan, right?
If the 5 of us can get into, or I guess we're more than 5, but if we can get into flex together this season, then it can probably happen.
We gotta like hammer out your placements, man.
I'm level 29 on my Smurf, so.
Oh no, I meant even like on your main, because it's not gonna place you in diamond, and then that'll solve some of this lockout problem.
Oh yeah, I guess you're right. That seems like a lot of work. But probably a lot less than making a Smurf. If I had thought about that like a couple weeks ago, probably have a lot less wasted hours.
Top lane. Why does it suck, guys?
Whew, there's like a few big reasons.
Oh, so before
I'm
we
the
begin,
support. Like, I'm just gonna kick back and sort of let you two go at it.
Before we begin, I think I need to point out that Todd and I are both top laners, but we have vastly different perspectives. For multiple reasons. Number one, the biggest reason is we're in very different MMRs, right? As we already pointed out, Todd is Diamond and has been playing at a high level for a long time in the top lane, and he's used to playing with high level opponents. Where I'm playing right now is Chaos. Silver 1 is Chaos on all fronts. The matchmaking is Chaos. There's like 3 types of people in Silver, right? The people that belong in Silver and they're learning the game. The people that don't belong in Silver and they're there because they're playing a Smurf, or they just got placed low after placements. And then there's the people that are just doing their own thing because they want to. Maybe they know a lot about the game, but they choose not to use that knowledge, right? So when I play top lane in my chaotic Silver 1 environment, those games play a lot differently than when Todd is playing. This is the point I wanted to make there.
So I'm only mentioning this because we've also been playing a lot of Flex Q. Based on the number of games I've played in both right now, I actually feel like Flex Q is a really way more competitive environment this year than it was last year. My solo queue games have been pretty chaotic, and the Flex Q games have been they've been just slugfest. Sometimes we win, but it's ugly. And it just feels like there's a lot more coordination going on in there. And so it's worth mentioning that Punch has been playing with the team in Flex Q, and we're in that mid to high plat MMR range as far as that goes and everything. So you also kind of have this unique perspective of the chaos of solo queue and then the coordinated stuff going on in Flex. And then you also have your fives team where you're doing Flex.
Right. That's another point I wanted to bring up. Is this is actually the first time that I've tried to climb solo queue as a top laner, and it's really the first time I've tried to climb in solo queue in 3 years. Right? Like last year I did placements in solo queue and that was it. The year before that you forced me to duo with you in solo queue until I hit platinum, and then all right, I've had enough of this. So really I've been playing flex queue for about 3 years, and that's how I've learned top lane. So I don't really have a frame of reference for comparing this season's top lane to previous seasons of top lane. Flex doesn't feel all that different for me from a top lane perspective, but solo queue, I can feel the island. I can feel the top lane island. I don't know if that's new, if it's more of an island this year than last year. I don't know. I don't know if there are games in top lane where the game is decided before the laning phase is ended, and I had nothing to contribute to that.
That's right? One of the big issues, I think, with the lane right now is, man, there are games where I play great, and mid-game rolls around, and it doesn't matter. We still lose because I can't have enough impact on the game to turn that losing situation into a win. And there are games where I'm losing really hard, and it doesn't matter. Like, I could give up both turrets and be at the inhibitor, and the enemy top could be really ahead, and then the other 4 people on my team could just carry me anyway, because the enemy top doesn't have enough impact.
And my confusion for that is that something new? Or is that specific to this season? Because I don't know.
It's definitely been like on a swing, like an upswing in that direction over the years slowly. But I think top lane, is definitely at its worst at the moment in terms of like raw impact. I mean, top lane's always been low impact, which is why like teleport became a thing, because they knew that there needed to be a way that they could have more presence on the map, and influence games more. But I think with the change to the runes, there's like an entire class of characters, namely bruisers, that are more or less invalidated as characters. Their items are really expensive and they don't have good synergy with the new system mechanics. So even though they can get ahead, they don't swing games. They don't have the same carry potential as like, a properly equipped AD carry, because ADC items and ADC masteries and stuff are just so much more overtuned in comparison.
What champions?
And it's interesting because I don't feel like I don't feel like bot lane getting ahead is also enough to really win you a game. Bot lane falling behind is enough to lose you a game. It feels like, but if you win bot lane, so to speak, there've been a number of games where I felt like we crushed our opponent super hard, and that wasn't enough for us to actually turn it into a win. And so it's a weird state for the game to be in, because it does feel like you can kind of always come back if you're down, but it's really frustrating to feel like if you get ahead, that's not really enough to turn it into a victory for your team.
I mean, I think with AD carry specifically, because of their role in the game, the team does have to like prop them up for victory to a certain extent. You know what I mean?
But yeah, you're trying to get basically get the AD carry to like the 35-minute range. That's when they it almost doesn't matter who they're playing. I guess take Jhin out of the equation just because he's so weird. But like if you can get the AD carry to the 35-minute range, that's when they're just going to come online between the items and the long-term rune stuff that they've probably invested in.
I think the thing is though, like even though AD carries maybe don't reach their like super hard spikes until later in the game, I think there's a lot more survivability coming from the teammates in the game now, and people are willing to expend those resources on the ADC in team fights to keep them alive because they're so impactful as long as they stay up. So like even though the damage isn't there, at one item in, the support can still keep you alive long enough to have a massive impact. But typically like your bruiser types aren't the characters that these support or utility types are willing to target with these shields, or like willing to use like these big supportive cooldowns on most of the time, especially in solo queue. And so like even if ADCs like need more than one item or something, like item for item in the mid game, I think ADCs are still doing more because they're more supported by the team. And top lane is isolated from the beginning, but they're also isolated in the middle and end section too, because they're not getting that support that other characters on the team get.
Do you think teleport is a bigger offender here than we're giving credit?
In what way?
In some respects, it feels like teleport has really become mandatory out of top lane, and it feels like that's been the case for since season 5, season 4.
Yeah, probably even season 3. I think in competitive scene, and by season 4, it was probably solo queue mandatory.
And in some respects, Spellbook has made things a little bit more interesting because you don't have to start with teleport, and you can opt into it later on if you prefer to, or you can opt into something that is maybe more useful for the specific matchup. But that also pigeonholes you into a rune tree that is good. Inspiration has a lot of good stuff for you, but you might have preferred a different keystone. And you're locked into to summoner spell related stuff.
Yeah, I think I think that TP is something I've always disagreed with. It's kind of why I like to run the Ignite playstyle, but that's sort of like a personal thing. I think most people I think most people who played the game when the meta switched over from Ignite to TP would probably have felt like the change was a positive one. Because what was happening before was if you were the inferior player in the lane, you would get killed with Ignite, and then you would come back to lane, probably down a level, and down a significant gold lead, and then top lane's usually over after that point. So when they switched to TP, it kind of took away that snowball factor, and people felt like, they could get behind and still have a chance to come back. So I think that was like a positive takeaway from TP. But it's kind of relegated top laners into this situation where they're almost expected to just stay away from everybody else and fend for themselves. It's kind of, changed their identity in the game because teams are doing more with TP besides just recovering from losing lanes. They're using it to split push, or they're using it for objective control. And that's nice, but not every champ that goes top lane can handle that or succeed in that, responsibility, succeed, with that strategy. And anybody that just doesn't leave top lane right now strong enough to 1v2, which is, basically only tanks.
Yeah, I mean, like,
and
sometimes
mages.
that's just a champion limitation. Hey, your champion is not able to 1v2. That's not on you, the player. That's...
Mm-hmm. But historically, fighters are the class that do that.
Sure.
Especially early on in the game. And almost none of them, other than I would say Fiora and Camille, are really doing that right now. I think those are the two that still do well.
Two champs you play, right, Punch?
Not so much Fiora. Yes, definitely Camille. I was just looking at my history for the season so far, and I've played 34 games of Camille, and my next number of games played on a champion is 3. So, yeah, I've been playing a lot of Camille.
I can't remember the last time I played against a Camille.
Usually because I pick her.
That's true. I mean, we play together enough that you're usually picking her. But, I've been trying to play a lot more solo queue this season, and I don't play with you every single game. And I don't. It's weird, but I just don't feel like I see her that often on enemy teams.
But that also speaks to another change in, or a difference in perspective between Todd and I, is that, like you just said, Camille's prospering right now. She's not struggling very much at all. Like the addition of Comet and the rune changes made it so that Comet plus her W can carry her through the weakest part of her game, and then once she gets to mid game, she can go off and start doing Camille things, like picking off enemies, abusing vision and picking off enemies, or split pushing, or picking off the enemy AD carry. Like a bunch of things that not all fighters, fighters traditionally want to do. That they want to split push and they want to pick off the AD carry. They just can't do it as well as Camille can right now.
And that's pretty much but that kind of explains the situation. Camille has a keystone that she can use reliably, and it works well with her kit. And, so she's strong for it. And the other classes that are strong have good keystone synergy too, but fighters are lacking that synergy.
Yeah, like someone like Jax, right? Press the attack is good for Jax, but press the attack isn't very good in lane. You have to go through an extended trade in order to get that off. You need to get a 4th attack off before you get any benefit out of press the attack. Well, that's not true, because there is some flat damage that's done on the 3rd attack when it procs. But you really want to take advantage of that bonus damage debuff that the 3rd attack gives you. So it's not very easy to use in lane, which is why you're actually seeing Jax more out of jungle, because he can just use press the attack better from there, and because the matchups in top lane aren't great for him right now. Like you said, there are some mages like Vladimir and champions that picked often like Gnar that just give Jax a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, if characters okay, so there are a couple fighters who luck out, right? Like we have Camille with Comet, and I think in some situations, like with the rework to Aftershock, adding an AD ratio to it might give a couple other ones who have an hard CC that's fairly reliable. Might give them something to use, but even in those situations still, I don't think Aftershock is really the ideal keystone for a bruiser. I mean, a bruiser is really looking for something that's going to add to their damage maybe give them some kind of sustained benefit or potentially some, a little bit of burst, but they tend to be more sustained focused, and they tend to, just do more damage over time than their opponents while being tankier in the first 15 to 20 minutes of the game. They're just supposed to really be the early game bullies. So when you don't have keystones that are good in the early game, your class isn't going to excel in the stage of the game that it's supposed to. You're going to enter the mid and late game weak, and then now all of a sudden I guess you're supposed to rely on your mid or late game keystone, but it doesn't always feel like you can do that when you're playing from behind consistently.
I was trying to think of what they're missing in terms of a keystone, because what they've had success with in the past are like Thunderlord's Decree and Grasp of the Undying, or is there something else I'm missing?
Fervor of Battle, pretty popular.
That's a good point. Yep.
Yeah, I mean Thunderlords was good, but it was a little easier to proc, I think, than the new Electrocute too. It was easier.
Also, half the cooldown.
Yes.
There's a new rune on the PBE right now, and it's been there long enough that it seems to me that it's actually going to make it through, and it's not a keystone, and that's why I find this one really interesting. It's in the Resolve tree. They're calling it Bone Plating, and what's going to happen is after taking damage from an enemy champion, the next 3 spells or attacks you receive from enemies deal 20 to 50 less damage. That lasts 5 seconds with a 45-second cooldown.
I think that rune looks really strong.
Yeah, that seems really strong. And I look at bruisers and I think, well, that's something that they like. It means they can focus a little bit more on building damage, or at least building damage early on, as opposed to focusing on resistances like they might feel forced to. But at the same time, I'm also like, what's stopping tanks from just falling in love with this and taking even less damage than they already
That could hurt a lot of fighters too, especially if tanks are taking that.
I mean, that's the other thing with fighters. When we're talking about tanks, like traditionally fighters are supposed to be tanks early on in the game, and they're not right now. They're getting outstatted by tanks because tank items are really strong, and the bruiser damage items in comparison are a little bit weak. They were toying around with possibly buffing Cleaver up earlier in the season, but they decided not to go through with it. I don't know exactly why. Armor items are just as strong as they were, before the rune changes, but we're losing sources of penetration. All the lethality items have been nerfed. Cleaver wasn't compensated after its nerfs, and Last Whisper is clunky to build, and it doesn't feel very good when you have it. And because of the, switch from total armor pen to only affecting bonus armor pen, it's only good against, half of the people on the enemy team at any one time when you do build it. So you're making these huge sacrifices to try and get penetration. When you finally get to it, it seems like it's undertuned. And these tanks don't seem to give up damage because Riot has made it a habit lately to add % max HP, sometimes multiple places on their kit.
I brought it up a few times, but there's also that 7% armor penetration that was lost from the runes, or the masteries to runes change over, or you lost a flat amount of lethality or magic pen if you had been going down the the cunning tree.
Mm-hmm.
But so either way, between that and then just your potential loadout armor pen that you would have been, just putting into your runes, that's a considerable amount of penetration that's been lost, while the resistance items didn't get worse. Like, they didn't get taken down a notch or anything, even though the ways of sort of getting past those did. Got removed.
I really think Last Whisper has lost its identity, and I think it needs to have the % bonus pen that it penetrates significantly increased, or I think it needs to have its base stats increased, like the AD needs to be 25 again, or they need to consider going back to some of that total armor pen mechanics.
I'm looking at Last Whisper right now. It's 35% bonus armor penetration. Didn't it used to be 40?
It was 40 total.
It was 45 in the middle of last season.
For bonus or total?
Or it should have been
Bonus.
bonus.
It should have been bonus last
bonus.
season. Yeah.
Yeah.
When did that get nerfed? I don't remember that.
7.4. It got nerfed from 45 down to 30, and Lord Dominic's Regards and Mortal Reminder only go up to 35% bonus armor penetration. So like they do get a little bit better, but they don't get a lot better. Oh no, there must have been.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. It was increased from 30 to 45, and then 7.9, it was reduced from 45 to 35. I misspoke a little bit on that.
Okay.
But still, 7.9 is when it dropped from 45 to 35. And it's just been there, for a while.
Yeah, it's fine by me, man. Bring back the armor penetration. I hate tanks. The moment I switch to top lane, I've hated tanks. And tanks just feel like they've gotten worse over time. Because they're just... The lane's just not fun against a tank, right? There's no point in carrying out any aggression because they could just sustain through it. And, if the tank can't kill you back, then it's just a farming session. If the tank can kill you, like friggin' Tom Kench, then you just let him push and farm under the turret, and you feel terrible. Like this. Why does the game work like this?
I have, no issues with tanks, and I play a lot of them, but I'm playing in the low econ role, so you never get to feel like you're unkillable and you're killing everybody. You might be harder to kill, but it's really difficult for you to get that same type of damage out there. And so...
Yeah,
I can
like
appreciate
tanks.
the frustration.
I don't feel like tanks should be doing as much damage as they are. They didn't used to deal hardly any. I don't know what happened.
They did that
it's
tank
the percent
update, and
armor, or the
goal
percent
of the
health, like
tank
you said.
update was the
Right,
goal
yeah.
of the tank
Yes, we did
update
know
was
what
to
happened.
reduce the amount of damage that they were dealing, and it just feels like that's not the case anymore.
No, their
And
base
granted,
damage
Ornn
is very
came
high.
out and,
Ornn, the rework to Shen. Shen hurts like a bitch.
Yep.
I haven't seen Maokai lately, although, in the past he's always been a terror. Not so much for his damage, just for him being unkillable.
The tanks are the class that doesn't build penetration anyway, so they're not affected by all the nerfs to penetration.
That's a good point. Their damage might have been comparably lower because other bruiser types, whether they were going magic or physical damage, but the other bruiser types were getting some of that bonus pen, and they don't anymore.
Yep. So not only did they get lots of max HP added, but their base levels are probably a little bit higher on top of that. Just because of the changes to the mechanics. Tanks are just overtuned. We could talk about it all night.
It's funny because the fighters seem to be really thriving in the jungle.
Because they don't get killed in lane in the jungle.
Yeah, that might be it.
By a tank. And they don't get bullied out of range by a, mage. And they have a chance to snowball because they get to gank and then possibly get kills. Like, the thing about fighters is, since you're, like, entering the game knowing you're stronger early and weaker late, generally speaking. Some characters do decently all game, like Jax is a good example that is good all game. But generally speaking, you're entering the game knowing that you need to get ahead somehow. Like, that's your goal. You got to get ahead. And then you can carry the game as a fighter type. Or as a bruiser, because you got a lead early. But they're not getting leads in top lane, and that's why they're switching to jungle. Because now that's the only way they can impact.
That's a good point. I don't have a response. That's what's happened, and it makes you wonder if mains of those specific types of champions are just like screw it, I'm just moving into jungle and I'll figure out how to do that because I already know how to play my champion, and it's easy enough to learn the roots and all that type of stuff when you already know what the hell you're doing on the champion. It is hard to learn how to jungle and learn how to play a new champion at the same time.
Yep. So touching on the summoner spell, I think spellbook is good for top lane. We were talking about TP earlier and its effect on the lane. And I think the fact that summoner spellbook exists, has allowed people to experiment some. It's actually pretty cool because I've seen people take Ignite and then switch out, not just to TP, but also to Exhaust and Ghost have been fairly common. And sometimes they even switch multiple times a game. There were a couple times that I took it and I was able to switch to TP, like for a Baron. That was really central to winning the game.
Spellbook it's fun to use, and one of the things I'm really intrigued by is they're talking about bringing some of the old summoner spells back into the game, but only if you take Spellbook. And they have not confirmed that they're going to do any of this. Like, they're definitely playing around with it internally to see if they're going to go through with it. But, you know, it's interesting to think of, you know, to think I might be able to suddenly switch into Revive and, you know, have Revive and Teleport. And yes, that means I don't have Flash anymore, but it does mean if I die, I'm showing back up in the fucking fight.
I would quite like a Revive TP meta.
I used to play a lot of Dominion, and like Revive was central to Dominion.
Yeah, they baked it into your trinket.
They removed it. Yeah, when they removed the summoner, they had to re-add it as a trinket just because it was so central to the way the mode got played.
I actually remember playing it with the little Revive trinket. They still have it in some form, don't they? In one of the special game modes.
Yeah, if they ever, you know, put definitely not Dominion back in the rotating game mode, you know, yeah, you would be able to use the trinket again then, but I think.
Yeah, I thought so too.
So.
I thought it was in at least one of them.
But who remembers when the last time that rotating game mode came out? Like, and that's the only one of the rotating game modes I ever even play anymore. I don't find them that interesting because, you know, like Poro King is really not that different from, you know, just Howling Abyss.
Yeah.
One for All loses its novelty after about one game. You know, I guess if I got 20 minutes to kill, you know, that's an okay way to spend time. But, you know, this isn't for me to go off about the rotating game modes. But I do miss Dominion a lot.
You don't miss it till it's gone.
I played it a lot, so I missed it. Like
you missed it as soon as it was gone.
Yeah, I missed it as soon as it was gone.
To touch on whatever it's called, Spellbook again. The only reservation I have about that for top lane is if you're taking Spellbook and Inspiration as your primary tree, you kind of have to choose if you want defense and sustain versus damage as your secondary, which again kind of hurts fighters because fighters need a little bit of both. You probably want to spec into Resolve to get that sustain for the laning phase, but then you're not going to get the attack speed from Precision to help you out later on mid game. So it just feels bad.
Yeah, I think that the problem with Inspiration primary for top lane is just that you feel like you don't have enough stats. You just don't have enough in combat stats. Yeah, it's just a big problem.
I really don't like how stat bonuses are tied to the tree combination that you have. It just sort of seems like an unnecessary complication to the rune system. And it seems like I understand the spirit of what they were trying to do, but it seems like now it would just be really nice to take the primary tree I want, take the secondary tree I want, and then take the stat combinations that I want. Because maybe I'm an 80 carry who wants Inspiration and Sorcery, but would also really like the attack speed that you get from
gotta have that attack speed.
Yeah, you know, so instead of feeling like I have to be in Precision always, you know, it'd be nice to be able to experiment with the other trees instead of being locked out because I'm not going to get that attack speed.
We're seeing more and more people.
And I'm sure a lot of the bruisers feel the same way, you know, like there's probably a lot of appeal in going, you know, Domination and Sorcery, just to pick two. But then you're stuck not getting any, you know, help.
Yeah, there seem to be a lot more people that are talking about this now. There was a thread on Reddit not too long ago about Victor mains now taking footwork, but the problem with that is you're getting attack speed. What's Victor going to do with attack speed? Nothing.
He's going to get that shield out and back a little faster, right?
I guess. Sure.
No, he's gonna get the bonus auto from the shield attack.
I mean those stat locks are really a problem And for all characters, even just when it's the secondary, even not when it's the keystone, like ever since they changed precision plus resolve to giving attack speed forced, now on Garen, if I want to take the execution keystone, the coup de grace, for the extra ultimate damage, now I have to get 9% attack speed. I have to lose 65 HP. And that just doesn't feel good. I mean, why can't we just pick the stats that we want from the trees we select?
It seems like a real easy solution to the problem, and I don't know why they're so like, yes, it's gonna turn into new or different balance issues for some champions, but they already have balance issues for a lot of champions, and so it seems like a way to sort of resolve at least a player frustration, or I think, frustration within the player base, if not, the issues for all the champions out there. It just seems like they're digging their heels into this issue and or on this thing, and it's unnecessary.
Hopefully they do separate that. I mean, it's to be a little optimistic. It's still relatively early on in the season, but
yeah, that's a good point.
At the same time, it also felt like a long preseason. But
I mean, from that perspective, they could always just change the whole fucking thing again next year. You know what I mean?
They could.
They definitely will. You know they will.
But hopefully they do something about it sooner than that. Hopefully they're listening now to people and taking into their complaints into consideration. I don't like the fact that we're it's going to be 8.6 before they've addressed fighters. I mean, preseason was 2 or 3 months, was it not? We have to wait 6 more patches after preseason. I mean, it's
preseason was about 2 months, and we're really only a month into the season. It's just crazy that we're, because the season didn't start with patch 8.1, like the ranked season, I should say.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of that's the weird thing that Riot did. Normally they've started the ranked season with, the patch itself, and for some reason that didn't happen. Ranked didn't start until January, like 15th or something, right? 14th?
Something like that.
Maybe it was the 8th, but still, like we've really only had about a month of play.
But it should have never even got to the ranked season, because the whole point of preseason is to address the problems.
Yeah, I don't. It just seems. I don't know if they were in a hurry to start.
It feels like they've been caught a little bit unaware because as this fighter dilemma has been gaining steam, the first kind of big reworky thing that they've announced that they're going to do this year is the Mage Atom update. Like, well,
you still have a big problem with bruisers and fighters.
Like, wait a second. Where did this Mage Atom update come from? I didn't realize this was a thing people were worried about.
I mean, and now that makes me wish Braille was here because, speaking as the mage player of the group, he would have different feelings on it. But,
that's true, yeah.
I mean, just glancing at mid lane, it's not like mages are not hanging out in the among the top group. So, at minimum,
mages are leaking in the top lane. I mean, I think mages are fine. Mages are overtaking top now because they're just better off. If you don't want to play a tank, you play Akali or Vladimir or Swain, Kennen, something like that. And I've seen Anivia, and a couple other mages, Malzahar, Annie, that type of stuff.
And I've always liked the idea of some flexibility, like, hey, you could run double mages and you could bring mages top, but it's never felt like bruisers or fighters could really succeed out of mid lane. And so it feels like if they want to encourage that type of duality, like it should go both ways. Like, hey, we need to do some stuff for the other champions so that they have multiple areas you can play. I guess you can argue that bruisers and fighters can play better out of the jungle than mages ever going to really be able to.
I mean, you could, but I would say tanks can play top and jungle better than fighters can. And I would say mages can play mid, top, and support. And we see
depends on the mage.
We see, well, yeah, you're right, but it depends on, that's true for every role. I was gonna say we see some marksmen go mid, and it depends on the marksman, but some of them do. But we pretty much only see fighters top. They really don't. I mean, yeah, they're in the jungle right this last patch or two, but historically they pretty much just stay where they're at. Say that one role. I like the top is flexible. I just don't like that one subset, one subclass is just invalid right now. That's all.
Fair. That's fair criticism. Well,
and again, I haven't felt that as harshly because of the chaos I'm in. Like, I see a lot more diversity, but I can certainly see where Todd is coming from.
So what Punch is saying, Todd, is that you just need to keep leveling that Smurf.
I just need to get
just
as
play
good
the
as
Smurf,
Punches, and then...
Silver 1's a blast.
Oh!
Come on down, man.
I'm just not good enough, dude. I think Punch is just a better player than I am. He's more adaptable.
Get that shit out of here. Get out of here.
So we're going to move on to some listener questions here. We do have a few about top lane, so it feels appropriate, and we'll see how many we end up getting through here. Bop writes in, I understand that I'm in low MMR and should be playing abusable champions, so one of my ranked mains is Garen. Good news for you, Bop. We got a Garen specialist on the show today. I usually try to carry the game in bronze, and I have an average KDA on Garen of 3.37 and average deaths of 6.67. I know I have to die less, but how do I do that? Is there a certain set I should be building? Is it worth it in late game to sell all my damage items and buy all tank items when everyone is level 18? Do you have any tips on playing an assassin-style Garen?
Well, I think I'll tackle the questions in order, because it just seems appropriate.
How do I die less?
Yeah, how do you die less on Garen? Well, the big thing for Garen is, when you press Q, you have to run the direction that you need to be in when the move speed runs out. If you're strong enough to win the fight, then that's probably means that you're supposed to run in with that cooldown. And if you're not strong enough and you don't escape with that Q, you're probably going to die. So you really just have to respect your opponents. You have to just be aware that Q cooldown, and I guess your W to a certain extent, just for the damage reduction and the tenacity. But yeah, you just have to have good positioning, you respect your opponent, don't go in until you're ready to actually all in. For the item sets, is there a certain set you should be building? There's a couple good ones. If you're trying to play the more traditional tank Garen, you could try something like Sunfire, Cleaver, Sterix Gauge. That would be probably a 3 solid item build. If you're trying to play Assassin Garen, he says any tips on Assassin Garen, probably want to go Ghost Blade first into Cleaver second. You're going to go the Ghost Blade first for the move speed. Assassin Garen really needs the flat penetration and the move speed from the Ghost Blade. Cleaver second, just because you still need more armor pen, and then your third item can pretty much be, whatever you want it to be, as long as it gives damage. It can be Sterix Gauge, it could be Triforce if you're snowballing really hard, it could be more lethality, it could even be Infinity Edge, or maybe even a Mortal Reminder, I think is strong against tanks. In the late game, so do you sell your damage items and buy all tank items? I think in the late game, the most important thing is you have to have armor pen on Garen. If you don't have armor pen, you're not going to deal damage. Everybody's armor's high late game because of AoE defense items and just people's base stats. So make sure you get 2 or 3 armor pen items in the late game. And if you don't, then I guess you could consider selling some items to try and work towards that. I think a full tank Garen late game doesn't do anything. You don't deal damage. You don't have crowd control. I would probably advise against that.
As Assassin Garen, you need to get very adept at figuring out what brush your opponents are going to run through and just patiently waiting there. I've played with Todd so many times, and there's nothing funnier than him saying, hey, see that champion who is in the lane while he is just waiting he's just standing in the brush, the cliche Garen move is just wait in the brush and then show up spinning like an asshole. And sure enough, that person just runs through there and totally not expecting to find this big armored giant sword wielding jackass and just dies to the full Garen combo.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that is a big thing. People face check and they die. So if you have good map awareness and you have good understanding, like somebody shoves out the wave top lane and it's not safe for them to be too far up, you can almost expect that they're going to take a different route somewhere else on the map. So you can kind of be like, okay, the action's mid lane. So they're going to cut down through that tri-brush right after they're done pushing that wave, because that's going to be the safe route for them to walk. So if you've already scanned the area for warrens and they don't have vision, it's safe for you to stand there and wait. And, Garen's character who struggles with engaging a fight. So if you just allow them to walk up to your face, there's not really much more you can ask for.
That is the other thing. Like, with him struggling to engage a fight, even if you're not trying to murder somebody in the jungle, like just sort of being patient with your flanking ability, sort of in some respects, letting your team start the fight or let the opponent think that they have a good engage opportunity on your team, and then flanking from the side, running in and just murdering the back line because they weren't prepared for, this hulking monster of a champion, just barreling down on them, silencing them for so long and giving them no opportunity to do anything, and then just removing them from the fight with the ultimate.
Todd, I have a question. How would you approach a late game team fight as Assassin Garen? 5v5 team fight, you're Assassin Garen. Do I just run down the lane straight at the enemy?
I mean, just to clarify, even in Assassin Garen, you still have some defense, because you probably have Cleaver. Steric's Gauge is good in any build, and sometimes you have Dead Man's Plate. So just knowing that you're not paper thin, you still probably have at least 1 or 2 health sources. The biggest thing really is just, if the villain is on a high priority target, like the ADC or the mid, like I just get tunnel vision and I want to kill them, as quickly as possible. Then the villain will bounce around the fight to the next, target. And then that's kind of how I like to play the fight in an ideal situation. If the villain's on somebody I'm not interested in, like the tank or the support, then I just have to wait for a good situation where I can take out, just somebody isolated. I mean, kind of like Dom said, a good flank is really what you want, or you have to allow your team to engage for you, and then you have to go in like during the stun or during the knock-up or whatever it might be.
I appreciate that you are never looking to kill me unless you absolutely have to, because it means I get to cast my abilities.
Well, that's the thing is, if I'm forced to kill you, then and the AD carry lives, and you know what I mean? It's basically like not doing my job anyway. I definitely don't want to go for the support. That feels bad, man.
1.5 seconds of silence is an eternity in my role. So yeah. I like anonymity rights. My roster keeps getting filled with champions that are considered assholes, and it's completely unintentional. I currently play Bruiser Scion, Tower Eater Yorick, start E with Scorch and Aftershock Cheese Galio, and, to my shame, Speedy on-hit Teemo. It's not my plan to keep being a dick, but I am. Is there a name for a player like me who prefers champions that give the overwhelming urge to cackle maniacally in real life? Are there other champs I should add to my roster that fulfill the same emotional gratification? I definitely feel stuck in top lane because of this playstyle. Is there a way I can flex into other roles while retaining the same core idea? And like just an asshole, and these champions are totally normal? I can think of one champion you should be adding.
I can think of one too. But this sounds like a Chira question for sure. Like have you talked to Chira Jaden before? Because he loves being an asshole in these games.
He does. He loves building weird stuff and just like making other like specific players miserable. Mm-hmm. He always plays to win, but if he gets the opportunity to just like make somebody else's life hell, he kind of takes it.
To that point, to answer one of your questions, you can be a total asshole as a jungler, like Chira is. One of the things he likes to do is play Udyr and throw his weight around the map in the form of, constant ganking and invading the enemy jungler and taking all his stuff and then, telling him do something about it. But the enemy jungler can't do anything about it because he's Udyr and he just, wins that fight.
Nunu kind of gets to do the same stuff in that regard. You could play Tom Kench, and you could play Tom Kench out of top lane, or you could flex him down to support if you want to go that route.
You sure could.
And I'm pretty sure the 2 top laners on this show just get infuriated by that.
Oh, I love Tom Kench. I love that guy.
You love it when I play Tom Kench.
I sure do. I love it even more when I play against him, and he's got all that healing, and he can do a quarter of my life with his stupid chew him up move.
I feel like Kled kind of falls into this category, but it's mostly because once you figure out how to really good and manipulate Skarl, you can really infuriate a lot of people.
You will cackle maniacally more than any other character when you play Kled. Just because the shit you can get away with. The number of times that you will escape with minimal amount of health, and then the enemy knows that they're screwed because you got Scarl back, and they're dead. You win.
The number of times you will curse out that lizard.
Yeah, I mean, and even you don't even have to play around the passive. I mean, you definitely want to learn how to play with that passive with Kled, but if you want to be a total asshole, you could just go Ignite against someone like Nasus, and anytime he approaches the creep wave, go full aggro on him. You'll make his life miserable.
Todd, any asshole champions that you
yeah, if you play Akali, eat a dick. Yeah, like, I love how Akali can just stand there and press Q on you, targeted ability every 5 seconds, and you just can't do anything to stop it.
With Aerie.
And if you finally do trade, she just outsustains. She just does a combo on the minion wave, and then you just get fucked. And it's assuming you even get any damage onto her, because she can just proper shroud down if you're even thinking about it. So,
and she disappears so quickly now. She can attack you and disappear instantaneously before you get a chance to respond.
Yeah.
Todd, you can press E and spin around and still hit her, right?
Well, the thing is, Akali's shroud actually moves her forward, so she can displace herself instantly, and I have, you know what I mean, now I can't see her, so that actually isn't a catch-all, believe it or not.
Let's kind of spin a part of the circle and hope she's there.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it if you do hit her, but it just doesn't work as well as it might sound like it. It did used to, but now that she just jumps ahead a few feet, you know what I mean, like automatically, she uses it as a gap closer, you know, to get you if you're running away, and if you try to turn around, she's just invisible. And, yeah, I don't know, you're slow. When you get slowed when you walk through it, it just doesn't work out great for you.
But to kind of stick with the question, I mean, I think you've called yourself out on what you are and everything. You have just an asshole-ish style of play for this game, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There are, you know, do what makes you happy as far as this game goes and everything. Don't like try to actively ruin your teammates' chance to win. But if what you're doing is working, you know, stick with it, and just like, there's nothing better than getting in the head of the other team and just really making them frustrated with everything that you're doing. Because odds are good they're gonna tilt, and that's gonna give you a better chance to win. I mean,
make them miserable,
that knowing that we might run into you someday here.
I look forward to it.
Chill Pickles writes in, asking, is there a scenario where it makes sense to roam to a lane that has no crowd control when you're a mid laner with no crowd control? I mean, yeah. If they're really really far push forward or something like that, and you can roam down, and like, you know, pick up a few quick kills, or you glance over there, they look pretty low, and you showing up is gonna, you know, force them to have to recall or something like that. I'm kind of struggling to think of mid laners who don't have any crowd control at all, though.
I mean, yeah, the side lanes are long enough that the mid laners that don't have a ton of crowd control, even though they are escaping me as well, traditionally, when you don't have crowd control, that means you make up with it with damage. So, I mean, you should have enough damage in a long lane against an opponent that's pushed up to, if not kill them outright, at least blow a flash. And you don't even need to go for a kill in some situations. Sometimes it's worth roaming to a side lane just to help that person take a turret, right? Like if top lane turret is low and your laner needs a little bit of help in order to push it down, and for your team to get first turret, sometimes it's you can tell your jungler, or if you're the jungle, you can go top lane yourself. But if you're mid lane, you can tell the jungler, hey, cover my lane for a second, and then go top lane and help push down the turret.
I mean, I guess we got like what, Katarina, Mordecai.
Lots of damage. Lots of damage.
That's how
Fizz,
overloaded characters are. You just can't
Zed?
think of Zed. Yeah, I mean, you can't.
They've got slows,
Zed.
but I mean, yeah.
I mean, and again, Zed has lots of damage. You know, I mean, it's mostly the assassins who don't really bring a lot of crowd control to the table, but That's the point. They have a ton of damage that they're throwing out there.
As somebody who plays Garen, you know, I play somebody almost exclusively with no CC in a side lane. Sometimes I have mid lanes where I'm up top who have CC, and you know, you can still miss the gank even if you have crowd control. So you shouldn't be discouraged from trying. You know,
Corky.
Part of how this game works is just that when you're ahead, you have to use your lead to help get your teammates ahead as well. That's kind of how you swing more games in your favor. Like, that's how you impact matches. So, you know, if your top lane's behind, or your bot lane's behind, maybe they're light on CC, but you have a big lead. If you think you can win the game by getting that lane ahead, yeah, it's probably worth trying it.
Yeah, I mean, like the worst case scenario for a roam like that is that you and your teammate or teammates end up dying. Like that's the worst case scenario. But if you are roaming, the idea is that you are creating a numbers advantage for your team, whether you're going top to create a 2v1 or you're going bot to create a 3v2. So the hope is that you're getting summoner spells, and you can turn that into either, you know, kills, or you know, forcing them to recall because they took enough damage, and that's why they had to blow their summoners in the first place. And then you either get a tower, or you get a dragon, or you get a Rift Herald or something, you know, as a response move. And even if nothing else, even if all you get is the summoner spells, and then you have to quickly run back to your lane, that's still putting your teammates in an advantageous position the next time they want to pick a fight with the opponent. You know, Todd, I gotta imagine you love it when somebody comes up and forces your opponent to blow flash.
Oh yeah, I mean, being up a summoner on a top laner is a big deal, just because of the nature of the lane. You know, small leads turn into big ones.
Yeah, you know, and the same thing is true. You know, true with bot lane. There are so many enchanters right now who have pretty good ranged kind of pick type abilities. That if you can force them to blow flash, the next time they catch something, you know, catch them with something, that's probably turning into a kill for the AD carry. So yeah, I mean, like, just if you can force them to expend some type of important, you know, cooldown, like that's still a valuable roam. You just have to make sure you're not sacrificing too much to make up for that. And if I'm recalling correctly, Chill Pickles plays Corky. And Corky has a lot of interesting things he can do, because once the package arrives and everything, it's not like he is necessarily telegraphing that he's leaving mid right away. You know, he's telegraphing that he's got the package, but I don't think a lot of players, you know, really pay attention to the siren that goes off once Corky picks that up. Certainly in low MMR, I would expect that's not the case. So there's a decent chance that, you know, you could just look bot lane, and grab the package and then freaking race down there and murder the hell out of somebody, because Corky's burst mid-game is huge.
It sure is, Dom. It sure is.
I think that's going to wrap it up for episode 511. You guys feel good about that?
Yeah, man.
I feel pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. I've complained a lot, put some ideas out there. No.
You feel better?
No, they haven't fixed any of it, so definitely don't.
You're still not happy.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll feel better a couple weeks after this episode airs.
I was hoping that maybe just like sort of getting it out there and sort of venting your frustration would be enough to really, like, you know, sort of help improve things for you, but sorry, that wasn't the case.
Like a therapy session.
Like the problem is, like, I actually have been playing less because of, you know, I just I'm kind of limited as a player. I like to play the one or two champs I enjoy in one role. So if those things aren't going well, I basically just don't have fun. So, you know, hopefully things get better.
Todd, join me in silver. There's plenty of room down in silver, man.
Yeah, dude, anything works in silver. So pretty soon
that's right.
I'm gonna
Anything.
have that Smurf ready, dude.
All right.
Gonna be playing more AD carry Tryndamere?
You can play whatever you want in silver.
Yeah, dude, you really can.
All right, well, that's it for this week. We're gonna catch you again on Monday. I don't know what we have on deck. We wanted to have Sky in last Monday to talk Swain, and that he ran into some tech hiccups, and that was a bummer. I imagine we're going to talk about him sooner or later. And then we got the big patch that we keep talking about with the AP item rework going on. So that'll be something. Hopefully fun, but it'll definitely be something. That's it for me. Have a good one. Thanks for joining us.
See you guys.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to our product and being a member of the Trinity Force Network community. If you have a moment, please head over to iTunes and give your favorite show a comment and a rating. If you're so inclined, you can check out all of the other great shows in the network. We've got a wide variety of content from League of Legends to general gaming and role-playing podcasts. If you'd like to follow us on social media, we can be found on Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit under T-Force Network. We've also got a Patreon under that name where you can support your favorite shows with a small donation each month. Thanks again for listening, and we hope you continue to enjoy all of our podcasts, videos, and the community that we've provided.